Moria, Zimbabwe. Is Chamisa working for Mnangagwa? The question Zimbabwe is whispering. Right. My source just answered it. I have been sitting on this story for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Because this is the kind of story that changes everything. The kind of story that makes people angry. The kind of story where no matter what you say, half of Zimbabwe loves you and half of Zimbabwe wants to find you. But Panopam Zimbabwe, we did not start to play it safe. So, we are going to ask the question that everyone in Zimbabwe's political circles is whispering, but nobody with a platform is saying out loud. Is Nelson Chamisa working for Emmerson Mnangagwa? Before you close this video, hear me out. Because what my source told me last night is not a conspiracy theory. It is not tribalism. It is not ZANU-PF propaganda. It is a forensic analysis of timing, behavior, and political outcomes that leads to a question that I cannot unask. I cannot run away from it. I cannot unask it. Right? And after neither can you. Right? We're going to go somewhere very uncomfortable. Let me take you back to late January 2026, because this is where the story begins. For months, Zimbabwe's fragmented opposition had been trying to unite around one clear strategy to fight the Constitutional Amendment Bill, CAP 3. The bill that removes your right to directly elect your president. The bill that extends Mnangagwa's term without a vote. And then something remarkable happened. Civil society, lawyers, activists, former opposition politicians, church groups, they stopped fighting each other and started building together. They formed the Constitution Defense Platform, the CDP, a non-partisan coalition with one clear purpose: defend the 2013 Constitution, stop CAP 3, force the government to hold a referendum. For the first time in years, Zimbabwe's democratic forces had a unified front, a defensible legal strategy, a platform that transcended party politics and spoke directly to constitutional rights. It was the most dangerous thing the opposition had built since 2017. And then, 2 days later, Nelson Chamisa came out of nearly 2 years of political silence and launched Agenda 2026. 2 days. My source, when I described this timeline, said one word: convenient. So, what Agenda 2026 did to the opposition? Now, let me be precise about what happened next, because this is where it gets forensic. Agenda 2026 did not join the Constitutional Defense Platform. It did not strengthen the coalition. It did not add Chamisa's massive personal following to the unified constitutional resistance that was finally gaining momentum. Instead, Agenda 2026 directly competed with it. Chamisa's own supporters, people who have followed him for years, people who marched for him in 2018, people who cried when Constitutional Court declared Mnangagwa the winner, those people were immediately told by Chamisa's lieutenants to leave the CDP WhatsApp groups, to ignore the Constitution Defense Platform, to focus only on Agenda 2026. Amos Chibaya, one of Chamisa's closest allies, sent messages warning supporters against participating in any initiative not bearing the Agenda 2026 brand. The CDP, which was not even a political party, which was explicitly non-partisan, which was simply asking people to defend their constitution, was being treated by Chamisa's camp as an enemy. Political analyst Reason Wafawarova asked the question in print that my source asked me privately. Why would opposition leaders discourage their own supporters from defending the Constitution unless they benefit from the Constitution not being defended? I asked my source to answer that question directly. They took a long breath and then they talked. What my source said: my source has been inside Zimbabwe's political intelligence for a long time, long enough to know where the bodies are, long enough to know which conversations happened in which rooms, long enough to know what in Zimbabwe, political behavior that looks irrational almost always has a rational explanation. The rational explanation just isn't always the one the politician wants you to find, right? My source said, look at what Chamisa does, then look at what ZANU-PF needs him to do. If those two things keep matching, that tells you something. I said, give me an example. They said, ZANU-PF needs CAP 3 to pass For CAB 3 to pass, they need the opposition to be divided and the constitutional resistance to be fragmented. Chamisa launches Agenda 2026 2 days after the constitutional resistance consolidates. His people leave the CDP. The resistance fractures. CAB 3 moves forward. I said, that could be coincidence. They said, one time is coincidence. Look at the whole pattern. The whole pattern. In 2023, when the election results were disputed, Chamisa made noise and then went quiet exactly when the legal challenges needed maximum pressure. When the Triple C was being captured by Sengezo Chabangu, a process that stripped dozens of opposition MPs of their seats in what critics called a ZANU-PF operation, Chamisa's response was to resign from the party rather than fight the capture legally and publicly. When the CDP formed and needed Chamisa's 2 million followers to add weight to the constitutional challenge, Chamisa launched a competing movement and pulled those followers away. Zimbabwe, my source said, in intelligence work, we have a concept. We call it objective alignment. It means you don't need to prove to people, you don't need to prove two people are working together. You just need to show that their actions consistently produce the same outcome. I said, what outcome do Chamisa's actions consistently produce? My source said, ZANU-PF stays in power and Chamisa stays relevant, safe, funded, and always positioned for a next time that somehow never comes. Oh. Muri Zimbabwe, triple panapa mzinda wevanhu. Right. Now, I am going to do something that most Zimbabwean political commentary refuses to do. I am going to give you the other side. Because Pamutapa Times is not proper. We are not about propaganda. We are not here to destroy Chamisa. We are here to ask honest questions. The counter argument is this. Chamisa has been saying clearly and consistently, Zimbabwe's constitution is already broken. The 2013 constitution has been violated so many times by ZANU-PF that defending it in its current form is defending a document that protects no one. He is not wrong about that. His argument about strategic ambiguity, the idea that building without visible structures makes it harder for ZANU-PF to dismantle, has logic to it. The Triple C was destroyed through its own formal structures. Chabangu used the party constitution against itself. And the accusation that Chamisa is a ZANU-PF agent has been thrown at every effective opposition leader in Zimbabwe's history. At Morgan Tsvangirai, at Tendai Biti, at anyone who challenges the ruling party from a position of genuine strength. So the question is not whether Chamisa is definitely working for Mnangagwa. The question is whether it matters. Because my source said something that silenced me. They said, it doesn't matter if Chamisa is a sellout or a genius. What matters is the outcome. And the outcome every time is the same. The opposition is divided, ZANU-PF advances, and Chamisa is still standing when the dust settles. In Zimbabwe, a man who always survives while everyone around him falls is either the luckiest person in politics or he is an arrangement that the rest of us are not aware of. The CIO panic, the other side of the story. Zimbabwe. Here is what makes this story truly impossible to resolve and what makes it genuinely viral. There are reports, credible reports, that the CIO has triggered a high-level security alert specifically because of Agenda 2026. Not because they think it is harmless, because they believe Chamisa is building something they cannot see, a grassroots ghost network operating outside traditional party structures, recruiting in communities where ZANU-PF has no penetration, and most alarmingly for State House, attracting disgruntled people from inside the system itself, including reportedly disgruntled military officers. Let me say that again. Military officers, Masoja, inside Zimbabwe's defense forces are allegedly making contact with Chamisa's Agenda 2026 network. If that is true, even a fraction of that is true, then Chamisa is not a sellout. He is the most dangerous opposition leader Zimbabwe has had since Morgan Tsvangirai in 2008. So, which is it? Is Chamisa the man who deliberately fractured the constitutional resistance at the exact moment it was gaining momentum, saving ZANU-PF's interest whether intentionally or not? Or is Chamisa the man building a shadow network so sophisticated that the CIO cannot penetrate it? The genuine threat that Mnangagwa fears most. Right, my source, when I put both possibilities to them, was quiet for a very long time. Then they said, what if it is both? I said, how can it be both? They said, what if Chamisa is playing a game so long that even the people watching him cannot tell whether he is for Zimbabwe or for himself? What if strategic ambiguity is not just a political strategy? What if it is the man himself? I have been thinking about that for 2 weeks, Zimbabwe. Now, it is your turn to think about it as well. Right. Takuvara, Zimbabwe. This is the most important political question in your country right now. Not Cape 3, not Chiwenga versus Mnangagwa, not Chiva's jet. This question. Because the answer determines whether Zimbabwe is a genuine opposition capable of changing this country's direction, or whether the appearance of opposition is itself part of the system that keeps things exactly as they are. I am not telling you what to think about Chamisa. I am asking you to think about him more carefully than you have before, more carefully than his supporters want you to, more carefully than his enemies want you to. Because Zimbabwe does not need a messiah. Zimbabwe does not need a villain. Zimbabwe needs clarity. And right now, Panopam Zindaweban, we are committed to giving you exactly that. Share this video with every Zimbabwean you know. The ones who love Chamisa, the ones who hate him, the ones who have given up on politics completely. Because this conversation, this honest and comfortable conversation, is the one that Zimbabwe needs to have. Not after Cape 3 passes, right now. Izvezvi. All right, muri Zimbabwe, tiripo pano pamuzinda wevanhu. Ndini wenyu. Stay tuned. Thank you for watching. Peace.